We are excited to be celebrating the Power Panel podcast's first anniversary. Over the last year, we have interviewed powerful African women leaders from across our continent, including former presidents, chief justices, ministers, senior UN officials, lawyers, creatives, peacemakers, journalists, politicians, conservationists, activists, global policy leaders, political analysts, and IT leaders. Why? Because all over Africa, women leaders are making a difference. We are deploying power and transforming our societies. We have encountered ups and downs during this journey. Okay, yeah, I can hear you. You're very hazy. And that story is important to be told. And my earring has just fallen off. But we have also shared laughter.
Yes, I would be sitting in the same room.
I can attest to that. Learned many truths.
I was crying and she asked me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm black." And she was like, "What?"
And along the way, we're honored to be shortlisted for an International Podcasting Award. As we journey back in time during this special anniversary episode and explore the amazing year we have had, we thank you, our listeners and viewers, for your company and valued support. This anniversary belongs to you too. Asanteni sana, keep listening and keep subscribing.
This episode was recorded on 29th October 2025. Due to unavoidable circumstances, it could not be published as scheduled. We apologize for the delay and now invite you to enjoy it.
Welcome to a very, very special episode of the Power Panel. 1 year ago today, this journey started. And if you're wondering why you have a new face, it's because to celebrate the anniversary, we've switched the seats today. My name is Joy, and I have the honor of interviewing you today as we celebrate the anniversary of Ambassador Raychelle. So welcome to your own show.
Thank you very much, Joy.
Yeah.
I think it's so apt that your name is Joy, because today is such a joyous occasion for us. We started this podcast on this day last year, and at that point, we didn't know whether we'd be able to traverse the territory of podcasting. And here we are, and so we're celebrating. And I really look forward to having a discussion about that past year and all the many, many wonderful lessons that we have learned with you.
And just to set the stage, it's been 1 year of a lot of journey, a lot of learning, a lot of first steps. And through this special episode, we'll be giving the audience a little bit of a taste of not just what it takes to put together the show, but some of the highlights that we'd have since we started. So let's just jump right in. Ambassador, we know you from a certain light, particularly, knowing that I came from a journalistic background. We knew a certain ambassador, Raychelle Omamo. And when we see you in the light of the Power Panel, it's totally different. So tell us, how did you start this journey that looks so different from what we knew of you before?
Well, I left government in 2022. After having served for 7 years as the Minister of Defense of Kenya, and 2.5 years as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I was really clear in my mind after that experience in government that I wanted to pivot. I wanted to regenerate, to reimagine myself and to reinvent. And I wanted to do something that brought together my leadership experience and also provided me with opportunity to build up other women leaders. So I was sure that there is a leadership crisis in Africa. I mean, whenever you speak to any African, at the end of the day, they always say, "Oh, it's our leaders." So if that is the case, and because so many women are beginning to assume positions of decision making, it occurred to me that it was important for us to really equip these women for leadership so that the quality of leadership in Africa can improve. So that was the first motivation. The second motivation is that I realized throughout my own leadership journey is that as women, we never share our leadership knowledge. We don't share our leadership know-how. And so this podcast is about uncovering the know-how behind leadership, especially decision-making know-how. Leadership is about making a decision every other minute, whether it is employing people, whether it's creating policy, whether it's managing a crisis, you're always making decisions. And it's important for upcoming leaders to have a repository of lessons, of experiences that they can refer to improve their own leadership, and also to pass that knowledge on to those who will follow them. So the hope is that this podcast will create that library of learning and of learning tools, and we'll be able to use it as a learning asset to empower other women. How did I start? Very, very slowly. Honestly, I was like a river of molasses. I had to get into the mindset that, I was going to be a podcaster. I had no knowledge whatsoever of what podcasting entailed, apart from, watching YouTube clips. And I'm the sort of person who doesn't make decisions quickly. I like to have a certain degree of understanding before I make a firm decision. And so I consulted and consulted. I read and I read. I watched numerous YouTube episodes. I listened to thousands of podcasts on Spotify. I mean, there was so much hand-wringing, and everybody kept telling me, get started. But I had to really, lay down my past, lay down, the trappings of leadership, as it were, and really get down into podcasting. And that wasn't an easy experience. But once I got to a point where I felt I was ready, I then got on with it. And it's been an exciting journey from then on.
I like that you've drawn a line between your personal alignment, like with the purpose, and actually the doing. Because for a lot of leaders, a lot of people know why they're passionate about what they do, but they get discouraged here in the middle, in the process of getting things done. What are some of those specific fears that you had when you were starting? And just put yourself in the mindset of our listener who might have an idea that they want to start, and they're also probably, fighting those internal fears. Maybe you can help them understand from your perspective. What are some of those fears that you had probably when you were starting out?
I think the primary fear was not understanding social media. I felt I was sort of like an old fuddy-duddy kind of person, and I've always been sort of a bit apprehensive about the internet. And so I had to surmount that fear and to say, okay, to do this work, you're going to have to get onto YouTube. You're going to have to get onto Spotify. You're going to have to engage with an audience that you can't see all over the world. So get over that fear. Then, of course, there's the fear of failure. This idea that maybe you're going to make a big hash of this thing, and you're going to be a laughing stock, and you're going to make a mess of it, and, you may not succeed. So the fear of failure is quite pronounced at the beginning. But once you start, then another fear sets in, and that's the fear of finishing. It's all very well to start. You have to finish. You have to get to the end. If you say you're going to produce 12 episodes, you have to produce them. If you say that you're going to produce 3 seasons of a podcast, you have to produce them. So there's always that slippery slope where you think you're not going to meet your expectations and that you're going to fail. and that it's going to be one huge disaster. But you never know until you try. You'll never know until you get on with it.
If you start and you fail, you've failed forward.
And that's what I've learned. You get on with it, you learn by doing, and somehow you meander through, and you find yourself now, meeting other people who want to start podcasts. So you're now, you now talk very confidently about it. But a few months ago, you were sort of rattling away in your boots and wondering what to do next. So the evolution comes about through being very meticulous about learning and allowing people who are much younger than you to lead you. That was one of the things that I really had to learn, because this is an industry that's run by young people. The people who work for me could well be my children, and to accept that they know more than I do. And they had to lead me through a space that for me felt like a very dark forest most of the time. So you have to allow yourself the humility to learn and to be led by those who are younger than you. Because unless you adopt that posture, you're not going to move forward.
I wasn't afraid because I've always seen myself bigger than what my community had allowed me to see or envision for myself.
I just go in with the attitude that if someone has been able to do this well, who am I not to? What did they do that I am not doing? What can I learn from them?
And I'm really grateful to the young people that I've worked with throughout this podcast. Is that they've been very patient, because I'm a bit of a conservative person, a bit fussy here and there, sometimes I impede their boldness, with my little restrictions here and there. And they've really tolerated me and helped me grow. And so that's one of the greatest assets that I've been able to acquire, the minds of young people. And I think that's really beautiful.
I really want to thank the wonderful team of young Kenyans who have worked with me throughout this journey we have taken with the Power Panel podcast. Thank you, Tevin Sudi, sound engineering, Lucas Ngao, social media marketing, Melissa Mbugwa, production, Peggy Kalie, research, Somba Olende, administration, Steve Kuya, assistant sound engineer, and Christine Courier, makeup and styling. Asante Nisana.
I really like what you've tried to draw there, that there's always a tension between the vision of what it is that you want and the learning that goes in between, and, building some of those bridges with the support systems that you need. One question I want to ask you that also touches on a lot of leaders. How do you balance the desire of trying to get things right the first time? Because if you're starting something new, it's close to your heart, with also the understanding that when you're doing something new, it can get messy. So how do you balance that tension and move forward? Because as you said, starting is one thing, but perfectionism sometimes can get you stuck in the middle.
You have to accept that there will be messiness, and you also have to arrive at a position where you say to yourself, I have a large vision, but I mustn't be afraid of small beginnings.
Trust yourself that you will be able to do whatever, or you will be able to take on whatever challenge you face.
If you accept that the beginnings will be small, it means that you can engage. It means that you can get into all the processes around the production of a podcast.
Little by little, the bird builds its nest.
There will be messiness, and the messiness comes about, from very many angles. It could be that an idea that you had just flops, or our diaries within the team don't align, or a guest cancels last minute, or in the middle of an interview the sound goes off, or all those kind of things, or we don't have an alignment in our thinking around an episode. Now, what messiness does is that it ignites innovation. because you got to find a solution out of the mess. You have to now sit down, brainstorm, and ask what is the way out. Without the messiness, you're just sort of cruising. You're not being challenged. You're not being asked to look deeper, to search harder. You're not being asked to swallow your pride. Sometimes it's swallowing your pride. Sometimes you have an idea that you really want to push, and you begin to be uncompromising about it, but it's not working. And unless you're able to swallow your pride and to taking the ideas of other people, what you do is you exacerbate the messiness. I think messiness is also mitigated by creating, a rhythm of collective action, of collective thinking, and respecting that your team, each of them has truths, each of them has talents, and that maybe your talents are the most limited in the team.
It takes deep expertise, deep listening, deep response, not reaction, response to what you're learning. I have to constantly remind myself that this is collective action.
So once you create that rhythm, it mitigates the difficulties that you confront, and it helps you navigate and surmount them together. So I welcome the messiness to a degree if you're able to use that messiness to move forward. Messiness is negative and counterproductive when it becomes toxic. And the balance has to come from the team. The balance has to come from everyone agreeing to work together, everyone embracing your vision, and everyone understanding that unless you yourself are in the mix, you can't lead them, because you don't know what they're talking about. So you need to understand what the sound engineer is doing. You need to understand what the videographer is doing. You need to understand what scripting is, and so on and so forth.
Ownership of your craft, ownership of your passion, and ownership of your challenges. These three things.
So in this season, you played on certain themes: journeys, echoes, and reflections. What was the vision there?
When we started the podcast in October last year, our main idea was to create long form audio podcasts using a narrative style.
Working on the Power Panel podcast for the last 1 year has been an amazing journey, no pun intended. And the original season of what we were trying to do with the podcast was audio documentaries, because we were interviewing some very accomplished women who've done so much with their careers. And we were thinking, how do we package all this information and give the audience the context as well in the best way possible? And so we decided to go with the approach of tackling it as an audio documentary. So those first episodes of season 1 are completely audio rich, almost like you're listening to a documentary. So a good example of that is Amina Gurib Fakim's episode, The Accidental President. Amina Gurib is the first female president of Mauritius, and her being from those islands, we decided that we're going to use a motif of waves. So anytime the story would get very intense, then the waves would start crashing very loudly and would become very intense. Anytime when the story was a bit relaxed, then the waves are very chill, just in the background. Go listen to that episode again. You'll notice an undertow of waves all through the episode, amongst other exotic birds that are found in Mauritius that we were able to kind of source the sound effects for and all that. So that was a joy to work on that episode. And the entire journeys in general, the point was to bring the audience and the listener, which is you, into the world of the guests. So whenever you listen to any episode from that season, always keep that in mind, and you'll be transported to a land of your imagination, as we put it, as you are listening.
So after season 1, we got feedback, and one of the things that our audience has told us is that they wanted to have more visuals.
And for the first time, I really was being seen on the internet. Before, I could hide my face, because it was audio. So that was also a challenge. And then it was well received in the sense that people are now able to see the faces of young women leaders. And then we then added reflections to help us really think deeply and ponder and ruminate around some of the lessons that had been raised in the podcast. Reflections again presented challenges because though I'm a very good public speaker, I was surprised that I couldn't do rants. You know what I mean? And so, I was forever, driving the team crazy, doing retake after retake after retake. And it was just a different skill, kind of. I am a lawyer by profession, a former diplomat, and also, no, what do I say? Have I said Serbia twice? I have. I mean, I just feel that this is... Okay, this is the last one. This is what you should record then, okay? Welcome to the Power Panel podcast. Is that what I'm supposed to be saying? Yes. Okay. Welcome to the Power Panel podcast.
In addition to the journeys, echoes, and reflections, we also introduce the Power Panel bookshelf and playlist, in which we featured The Havoc of Choice, a novel written by Wanjiro Koinange.
One of my favorite episodes to work on this season was The Havoc of Choice. The episode meant a lot to me. It's one of those episodes that just stays with you. I remember wanting to take this really layered book full of politics, family dynamics, and tough choices, and make it as simple and as relatable as possible. I wanted people to see beyond the politics and really connect with the characters, the emotions, and the choices that they had to make. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes a story powerful. When you can see yourself in it, just a little bit.
You never live with the consequences of your choices. Just like these politicians, you will never suffer a day because of this election. You and I are not the same. And to think that we are is stupid. Kenya ina wenyewe, and you are one of them.
As a Kenyan youth, this episode really hit close to home. It reminded me that the choices made years ago can still shape the world that we live in today, and that our generation has the power to shape what comes next. What I loved most was how the episode turned into more than just a book discussion. It became a conversation about us, about empathy, and about understanding where we've come from as a whole. So for me, that's what storytelling is all about. It's about connecting people, sparking reflections, and reminding us that every story, no matter how heavy it is, carries a bit of hope.
Why are we so afraid of our pain? Pain is the thing that we should pay the most attention to because it signals something has been lost, and we lost something in 2007.
So that was all very interesting. Now, what all these formats have taught us is that you can tell women's stories from different perspectives. And each story, from whatever format you adopt, is rich, is useful, and reveals important lessons. And it also crystallized something that one of our guests told us. You build with people, and you learn by building, you grow by building. So all these innovations that we've been trying are just layering. It's building the foundations and then layering it with knowledge, layering it with experience, layering it with innovation. And we get better every day. I'm so glad that we have not been afraid to experiment and to co-create with our audience, to listen to what they're saying and to see whether the content that we're producing meets their needs and also elevates the women that we are interviewing. So it's been an interesting experimental second season, and I'm glad we made it to the end, and there are lots of lessons to learn.
What did season 2? Because in season 2, not only were you going audiovisual, but you went for emerging leaders, younger leaders, perhaps people who are now shaping, industries and different spaces as they're going. How was that different as compared to interviewing, some of the stateswomen and some of the people who had longer careers? What was the difference in like that interview style and that engagement for you?
What surprised me was how wise these young women were. I mean, that really blew my mind. There's this expectation that wisdom resides in the old. That is not true. And the insights that we provided, the way they express themselves, their confidence, their willingness to fail, to pick themselves up again, it really was very moving for me as an older leader to be satisfied that there is a strong pipeline of leadership in Africa. And what we have to do is to support that pipeline and ensure that they get through and that they inspire the other women that are following them. I found that I like the interactive engagement because you can see people's expressions. It's warmer. It's more. It adds a human touch to it, but it also has its pitfalls. I found that on the audio podcasts, women would actually go deeper. I found that when they didn't see my face and I didn't see their face and they were just listening, they opened up more. It was those interviews I felt were deeper emotionally than season 2's interviews. But they were all rich in their own ways and all really, really valuable.
Across all of these videos, we've seen certain themes keep coming up. Yeah, we've seen leadership from different people. We've seen vulnerability. We've seen courage. One thing that has really come through is power as a service. What did you think about when you're going through this topic and having these conversations with these voices and these amazing women?
It was interesting that many of the women, not just in season 2, but also in season 1, found this connection between power and service.
My leadership is about being in service.
I decided to go in medicine because of that empathy for others, caring for people, and serving others.
I wondered actually where that came from. And I thought that perhaps the root of it is that we lead in a particular context in Africa. We lead in a context of underdevelopment, a context of inequality, a context of poverty, and a context of great need. And so when you get into positions of leadership, you see that need. And you know that you can't just lead for yourself. You have to lead to change the life of another person.
Use power as a source of light and for good.
I grew up in a context of poverty where I saw what poverty does to people and how it pushes them to extreme levels of desperateness. And that has literally informed my career path.
Equality and access is very important. And that way I end up finding myself doing social justice work.
And so this nexus between power, service, leadership, and service is understandable, and I'm glad that that's the way women are leading, and understanding that leadership has to uplift others. That theme was continually emphasized during the podcast.
You are only a leader if you're able to uplift not only the people you care about, but your society.
I'm driven by people's power. I'm driven by the fact that everybody knows what they need and everybody can contribute to developing it if they're supported with the resources to do so. I want architecture to contribute to social change.
But I also noticed something else that was strange to me, is that though there was this connection between power and service, is women aren't really that comfortable about talking about power. It's interesting. they understand themselves as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
But when you ask them whether they're powerful, they're almost embarrassed about saying so. And I thought that was intriguing, and not just in relation to the younger cohorts, but even the older women. This may be due to the negative connotations around power in Africa and its association with greed, with graft, egoism, and brutality. So when these African women leaders link power with service, then this could be interpreted as a rejection of the prevailing negative template of power in Africa. Maybe these women are pointing to something new and fresh. One very, very powerful lady that we interviewed, who is a leader who used to, oversee all the operations of the BBC in Africa. Her name is Raychelle Omamo. And when I asked her about her power, she said to me that she didn't realize she was powerful until she left that job. Yet it's one of the most powerful jobs in journalism, because she was interested in leading the team to deliver the task. That was her main priority.
Leadership is power in service to a community. If I'm very comfortable with power, if I'm clear it's in service.
Another theme that came up quite strongly was empathy. Why do you think this was mentioned quite strongly by people who work in very high stakes environments?
Women, in my view, are nurturing as individuals. I know that's a generalization, but I think it's true. Perhaps it's due to our socialization, perhaps it's due to gender stereotyping, perhaps it's due to societal norms. But we generally expect of ourselves that we will be empathetic, that we will be caring, and that we will be interested in people's feelings and in their comfort.
The power for women is caring, bringing people together, how you touch their life, how you change their life, what a difference you make to them, how you make them feel.
I have a very people-centered leadership style. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a very strange space where I'm not supposed to care about, societal things and emotions that are happening, but I do care because that is the kind of person, it is a core foundation of my character.
That doesn't apply to all women. And women who are not empathetic leaders, or are perceived as not being empathetic, are dismissed as being very harsh, overambitious, aggressive. They're treated in very, very negative way. They run into patriarchy. So perhaps, as one of our guests told us, that women in the face of patriarchy need to develop new tools, new instruments. And I think empathy is a foil against patriarchy. Empathy is a tool for getting things done. When you're empathetic, you can bring people together and you can move forward. When you're very aggressive, you can confront resistance. So it's part of this dance that Wanjiro Koinange talked about.
The patriarchy is one that I will fight forever, but I will do so with tact. I'll know when to humble myself, but I also know when to channel my mother and be fierce and and not take any nonsense. It's a dance. I think it's a big part of being a woman.
You have to use tools, you have to create tools that help you survive in the leadership arena. And I think empathy is one of them. It doesn't mean women are being ingenuine when they are empathetic, but they know the power of empathy in garnering followers and in leading them.
I know there are some people who say, empathetic leaders are weak, but I actually believe empathy is strength.
I am not only soft-spoken, but I'm also patient. I can accommodate. I like to consult. I am inclusive and so on. And that is really, that helps me. It gives me flexibility.
I have watched in different ways how it's very easy to undermine people but it's very easy to inspire people when they see that you are open.
It's really lovely that you should say that. When I was a young journalist, I remember Carlin Motoko used to come and speak to us. And she said in her early years, she tried to outmen the men by wearing the suits and, being very masculine in the workplace. But then as she grew into management, she started, wearing the dresses, being the doll and allowing herself to let certain elements of what she thought she had to put away to be a woman in the workplace to come to the fore. And I really love that because oftentimes it really helps us to connect people and to become collaborative.
As we take this short power break, we ask that you subscribe to the Power Panel podcast. Let's work together to expand the Power Panel community. Visit our website, birdsongafrica.com, and follow us on social media to plug into the Power Panel network. Email your thoughts to hello@birdsongafrica.com. When we return, we unveil the next stage of this journey. This is the Power Panel podcast.
Another thing that I really like as well is that oftentimes women, particularly in the Echoes season, are daring to dream, right? In new in fields and in new phases. One theme that keeps coming across is the ability to take risks and the courage to start again. What have you observed about women daring greatly from these conversations?
What is daring? What is risk-taking? It's an act of courage. But you can't take risks and you can't dare unless you're also self-confident, unless you also have self-belief. I mean, the risk takers are those who are optimistic, those who believe that they're taking the risk and they're going to succeed. And even if they fall face down, they're going to get up. They're not going to break. They're just going to bend. They're just going to reset and life is going to go on.
My mother taught me basic principle that the sky is your limits. And she said to me, when you fall, don't fall on your face, fall on your back. So you can look at the sky, you still have a long way to go.
So I think that risk-taking, because it is grounded on self-belief and self-confidence, in some ways risk-taking is nurtured because your self-confidence is built by your environment. It's built by your parents, it's built by your schools, it's built by people continually affirming you. And when you are affirmed and when you believe you're capable, then risk-taking is very easy. I remember listening to Her Excellency Amina Gurib Fakim, who's a real risk-taker. And she says her risk-taking came from something innate in her, but also from her father continually telling her that she can do anything that she wanted. And so it sort of emboldened her, to do things and to go to places that no one else had been to as a woman in her country. And so the thing about daring is that you have to admire the women who can do it.
I believe in shooting all the shots. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You know what? I'm just going to wing this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to wing it.
You need to have that vision of transformation. And that vision even sometimes scare you.
And risk-taking and courage. I mean, I empathize with women in public office, or women who are activists. Sometimes the risk-taking and the daring is something that runs contrary to your own character, and it surprises you. We've had discussions with Faith Odhiambo, chair of the Law Society. We've had discussions with Justice Maaza, who was in her younger days the leader of the equivalent of FIDA in Ethiopia. And all of them found themselves in a situation where they had to stand up and be counted.
When the Gen Z insurrection happened, I decided to lead by example. That if it was going out to police stations, I would be the first person there. If it was going to court, I would be the first person there. And also giving as much support as I could as an individual to try and ensure that I protect my council, I protect my secretariat, and I take the lead as faith.
It's not a joke to be in confrontation with with the government in Africa. So the choice was like, okay, you have to close door and walk away, or stay in the fight and take the risk. Huh? So we took the second option, and we decided to take the Minister of Justice to court, and that was unheard of.
And I empathized with that because in my time as chairperson of the Law Society, I also had to stand up, be counted, and speak truth to power. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that. But sometimes the circumstances cause you to dig deep and to find something that you didn't know existed. So courage can also surprise you. And I think it surprises very many women when they're confronted with crisis, when they're required to make, sometimes life-changing decisions.
I'm going to use something that I saw on a t-shirt. They say courage is contagious, right? And in the case of people like Faith, who has been very public in her leadership and the fight for justice in Kenya, and in many other leaders across this podcast, we've seen them talk about the challenges, the self-doubt, the pressure, the resilience. I want to take it from your side of the mic. What does it feel like when you're listening to them tell these stories? When they talk to you about the challenges in those difficult moments, how does listening to these stories change your relationship or even cause you to examine your relationship with self-doubt or just doubt in general?
Well, I'm somebody who has always suffered from self-doubt. I've always questioned, whether I'm capable of doing this, that, and the other.
Sometimes it's also self-doubt. The mountain can look very high, and Moses is afraid of climbing the mountain.
Even when you work with disadvantaged groups, you feel like an imposter. What are you doing here? What do you know about this place?
You feel sometimes quite overwhelmed because there's so much expectation vis-a-vis the reality of what you're capable of doing.
It was quite challenging, and I did suffer from, imposter syndrome. It was tough because the truth is, people doubted my competency.
And what irritates me is that self-doubt, imposter syndrome is increasingly associated with women. It's like, this weakness that only women carry. I've found in my experiences that men also worry. It's just that they don't express it. They don't articulate it so openly in the way women do. But self-doubt is a fuel. It really is a fuel because you have to prove that you can do it. If you doubt that you're a public speaker, as a woman, you'll go out there and learn how to be a public speaker. If your job is to make legislation, you go out there and learn how to do it. So it pushes you to do better because you don't want to be caught out. You don't want to be belittled. You don't want to be told that you can't do it. And I found that I saw myself in so many of these women who were asking themselves these questions. But the oddest thing is that they were asking themselves these questions, but they were still the vice president of this country, the head of this company, the head of this NGO, So you carry your self-doubt with you. And I think if you lay it down, it makes you complacent. And it's good to suffer from imposter syndrome because it means you take the work that you're doing seriously. You want to be good at what you're doing. You want to make sure that at some point you will surmount those fears, you'll gain that self-confidence, and you'll surmount those hurdles.
And I really like that because oftentimes in this digital world, we're seeing the highlight reel, There's someone, going through those amazing highlights. And when we compare that with ourselves, we're like, maybe. But sometimes being, as you said earlier on in the talk, that being comfortable with the messiness of growth is part of the process. And I really like how you articulated that even when we talk about, reflections on self-doubt and resilience. I want to move to something that is very real for a lot of people in Africa and also for a lot of women particularly, which is sometimes you're working in spaces where the playing ground is totally uneven, right? You walk into a room as an African woman or even as an African person or as a younger woman, and there are certain biases that you face.
There's a lot of biases that we're facing. It's racism, it's misogyny, it's ageism. We're consistently having to fight the battle that we're African. And not just that we're African, but that I am Black African.
Being African in itself, in many global spaces, doesn't come with advantage. It comes with disadvantage. You're marginalized.
The fact that I'm single, the fact that I didn't have a husband, I didn't have kids, that was always thrown at my face. That was always something that was a gamble between, is she capable and is she competent? Because how is she still single? She's Swahili, she's Muslim.
What responsibility do leaders have in terms of how they lead their teams or even how they carry themselves in environments where they know that there is an uneven playing field?
I think you have to fight injustice. You have to fight prejudice. You have to fight the biases. Because if you don't, it means that you do not expand the space for women's leadership. And the spaces where African women are beginning to lead more now than they did before are in global spaces. And in those global spaces, the prejudices and the bigotry is quite pronounced for African women. I experience it myself even as a minister. So if we want Africans to contribute, not just to the development of our own continent, our own countries, but to shaping global agendas, then we have to be able to be respected in these global spaces and in these global rooms.
As a woman, where we often face multiple biases against us, I wanted to be undeniable. I've had to gain my street credibility all over again, especially as a Black woman in a very not diverse space. Transparently, it includes a lot of tears. I've cried a lot of tears. It's just the weight of it, because I would feel like I'm representing all Black people, and if I don't do a good job, this team will never hire any other person of color.
But we also mustn't forget that on our continent itself, there are other prejudices that go beyond the racism, that go beyond the ageism. We have to tackle religious prejudice. We have to tackle tribal prejudices. And these are things that we never think affect women's leadership. We've never really explored the degree to which tribalism holds women back. We also need to look again at issues regarding inequality in our societies. We need to look at new issues that are emerging, like what do you do if you're a child of a mixed tribal marriage or intertribal marriage. Dealing with this idea that Tayu Kilili told us, this idea of not being good enough.
My father was one tribe and my mother was one tribe. And also, again, the disparity. When I went to my father's side, they'd be like, oh, you're not enough. And when I go to my mother's side of the family, they'll be like, you're not enough, because they're always like, yeah, you're just in the middle, you're just whatever.
How does that break your confidence? How does it prevent you from growing in strength as a young woman? So there are lots of prejudices that we need to interrogate within our continent and outside our continent. But the main thing is that we can't accept the status quo. We can't. You have to stand your ground. You have to fight. You have to ensure that things that pull women back are not allowed to crystallize in an age where women are beginning to make a mark on our continent and on our leadership.
We as women have to lead by example, and we have to show our sisters and also the society that there is a better way for living together as human beings, and that no one is entitled to lose his or her dreams because of social norms.
That's a really lovely reflection on how leaders have the responsibility to recognize the biases around them, right? That affect them, and not just in the traditional racist African sense, but even inequalities that are existing in our day-to-day lives. And I want us to move to the next theme, which is adaptability in learning. What has this year taught you about staying a student and enrolling always to the school of life?
Oh, I think it has taught me very many lessons, because to change your I wouldn't call it, to change your calling at my age in life and to learn something new, and for instance to be a podcaster as I am now, you have to become an apprentice. You have to take on the mindset of an apprentice. And what does an apprentice do? You learn skills. And who do you learn them from? You learn them from people who are more skilled than you. And the people who are more skilled than you are younger than you. So that attitude of apprenticeship is something that I have come to value, and to see it as a skill that helps in growth.
I realized to build a good career, you must become a lifelong learner. You must deploy the learning mindset and learn including the things that people aren't paying attention to.
I appreciate the wisdom and the intellect of people around me, and I want to be seen as a person who allows the space for wisdom and intellect to come through, but also to allow a diversity of ideas.
This theme of learning was very, very strong throughout the year as we interviewed women from all walks of leadership. Everybody has emphasized that it's important to be a constant learner, and not just to learn what is obvious, to learn things that people are not paying attention to learn yourself, to teach yourself. You don't necessarily have to go to a university to learn from those around you, to read widely, to listen, and to accept that you're not always right, to accept that you don't always have full knowledge. And it's the knowledge, it's the learning that helps you lead. And that is such a truism. And anybody who stops learning from other people, stops learning about people, stops learning to lead, is never really going to achieve their fullest potential as a leader. So that was a very, very strong learning for me, I think for our team, and for anyone who has listened to these podcasts.
It's so very important to be adaptable and respond to change with grace, faith, love, excitement, positivity, optimism.
And I really like that you're learning by doing, and you're talking about apprentice because it's getting your hands in it and getting it done. But oftentimes, anytime you learn, it's like when you're working on new muscle, the muscle has to break before it rebuilds stronger. What has been the emotional cost that a lot of women who are breaking barriers have to deal with? What have you learned about the emotional cost of leadership and breaking barriers?
Well, leadership is a privilege, but it's also a burden. It's a burden.
The emotional cost of this work it's very heavy. It's very heavy work.
It becomes overwhelming, and I feel like now you're under greater scrutiny as an individual, because people now expect much more from you. And you have to be careful how you behave in public, how you behave in private, in terms of how you deal with people, because the bar now raises higher with you, because great power comes with great responsibility.
You carry so many people's problems on your shoulders. The workload sometimes is so oppressive. You have to deal with the criticism. You have to deal with public disdain. And in this podcast, we've interviewed women who have served in public office, women who have been ministers, who have been assistant ministers, vice presidents, people who have worked in government. And I really, really empathized with them.
I realized that when you're in government, because you're in a public office, there's a sense of ownership that the public has over you. That sometimes you have to go out of your way to do some certain things in order to create boundaries and command some sense of authority.
The emotion that you often feel is the emotion of paranoia. This fear that things are going to go wrong in your watch. Because you're surrounded by the forces of corruption. You're surrounded by people who undermine you. You're surrounded by the brutality of politics itself.
You experience frequent episodes of stress, and sometimes you feel as though your heart is constantly pounding and pounding with apprehension.
Cicely Karaoke described it as walking on eggshells every day.
I knew this is where when you make a mistake, then my life, career, and everything is finished. And therefore, I was on eggshells almost every day. But it took blood and sweat.
And recently, we interviewed a young politician called Jerry Minor, Honorable Jerry Minor. And when I asked her what her power mantra was, she said that, power is corrupting, and you have to wake up every day and not shake hands with the devil.
Say it again.
That it can be very corrupting. You have to wake up every day and refuse to shake the hand of the devil.
Because there's always something that is after you. You're trying to undermine your integrity. You're trying to stop you from doing the right thing. And you just pray every day that you're not swallowed, by the corrupting forces that are around you. And that takes a real emotional toll on you. And you feel exhausted. And I also know that, women who don't even operate in the public space, women who are operating in the corporate world, also suffer a great emotional toll in meeting targets, in keeping up with tempo. And a number of them have told us that they just simply burnt out. They just burnt out, fizzled out for a while and had to rejuvenate.
I was totally burnt out.
You get all these great opportunities, and it comes at a heavy cost sometimes. I have burnt out twice, where I've just needed to take the whole month off.
So in leading, you really have to take care of yourself. You have to balance your personal life and your life in leadership. And you have to look after yourself, your health, your mental health, your physical health, because no one else is going to do that for you.
How are the women recharging their banks? Because, as you said, the work that they're doing demands so much of them. They constantly have to have their head on a swivel. So what are some of the nuggets about staying grounded that we picked from some of the women who we featured on the podcast?
Many of them have learned that they need to take a break and actively take breaks. There was one lady, one of the leaders, who told us that when she really feels stressed out and frustrated, she goes out and she touches grass. Literally. She's an outdoors person, and that recharges her. Some of the leaders go out and play golf. They exercise. Some seek counsel amongst their peers. So you have to have an outlet. One of the leaders we interviewed also talked about how she has developed an emotional bulletproof suit that she metaphorically wears when she gets herself into situations of stress on the office floor and needs to make decisions. And that helps her in her mind separate her emotions from the issue at hand and allows her then to think rationally.
So emotionally, yes, you end up getting quite overwhelmed. But what I've learned over the years is to separate my personal emotions with the job. I put on what I call my bulletproof vest, emotional bulletproof vest.
So she has developed that resistance tool. And it's important for all of us to find a way in which we prevent ourselves from the slide towards exhaustion, the slide towards burnout, and this feeling of, constant paranoia. You've got to imagine it differently and to understand that taking a break is not weakness. You also have to remember that you can't do everything and ask for help. Ask for help.
And you need to ask for help when you need to ask for help.
Ask for help. Wow. I really like that. That's a lovely way to finish our reflections on the episode. I want us to go a little bit more about now reflections on what has changed and what has happened internally through the growth of this podcast. So when you look back from the beginning, when this podcast was just an idea, to now that you're winding up the second season, what has changed in you because of going through this journey?
Well, I've learned, a number of things about myself that surprised me. I knew I had these weaknesses, but I didn't think they were that pronounced, I didn't realize I'm such an impatient person, I'm so impatient. And I've had to control that. I've had to live with that and to try and moderate it so that, I don't put too much pressure on the team. I always knew I had a creative streak in me, and the podcasting has accentuated that and affirmed that is true. I'm surprised that I have an ear for music. I find that when we're looking for accompaniment for the podcast, I find that I can find music that's appropriate quite easily, and I didn't know that I had that skill. There are other things that I have had to work hard on, and that is being resilient and tenacious, because you have to be resilient and tenacious to finish. I was a resilient person, but I felt that because I was pivoting into a new area, I needed to be more tenacious than I was before. And also just the exposure to a new generation of Africans. I think that has been the greatest gift. It's nice to work in proximity to people and to sort of assess how you see the world and how they see the world. And I've found that young people are very quick. They're what can I say? They expect to find a way to the end somehow. They expect to hustle their way through. Some way or another they're going to finish. And they're very dexterous in that way, and they're fearless. Maybe it's the fearlessness of youth, or maybe that's just how the next generation of young Africans has become. You have to be fearless. You have to find a way, and you have to do it joyfully, whether you like it or not. So that has been an interesting experience, and I'm glad they've allowed me to walk in their minds and to share, their perspectives of what a podcast should look like. And it's interesting, most of my team are young men, and it's very interesting to me. And they sit there, they listen to all these women, saying all sorts of things, and I always wonder. how this podcast has affected them and how they are, whether it's helped them, understand women better, understand leadership better, understand patriarchy better. So I hope I'm building them also, and they're also growing as men who will lead differently on our continent in years to come.
Working on the Power Panel podcast for the last 1 year, we've interviewed some amazing women leaders in the Africa, in the diaspora, wherever. And I have personally learned so many lessons, especially in season 2, that we were mainly focusing on emerging leaders in the Echoes series. There were so many times I kept pinching myself, asking myself, these women have achieved what at the age of what? Like every single week, it was just upping the next onto the next onto the next. For example, Nadia Abdallah, we had Lorna Ogola Omondi, we had Honorable Jane Jerry Minor. So some people who are just doing some amazing things. So on top of that overarching theme of just everyone being overachievers, one lesson that I really, really took to heart was from episode 1 of season 2. That is Lorna Ogola Omondi's episode. She said something along the lines of, you need to find your genius. So she talks about that very early on in her, career, maybe schooling life. She discovered that her genius was in pattern recognition. And so that's where she thrived. So her saying, everyone has a genius inside them and they just need to discover what it is. I think that really resonated with me, because truly everyone does have something special inside them. And once you recognize it, you're able to use it to your advantage. So find your genius.
I think one thing you have to realize as a podcaster who is recording leadership journeys, that each story is a gift. It is a gift, and you have to treat it as a special gift.
You are capable of doing anything, and never, even in the darkest hour, give up.
Brace your power and walk in it.
I really have enjoyed this conversation and the ones around it. Oftentimes, for you to hear such great wisdom, you have to travel far or pay large attendance fees for mentorship sessions. But through what you've done with this podcast, through the team that has put it together, through the amazing guests who have shared vulnerably their journey, there's so much to learn. And so I just want to say thank you, first of all, to you, Ambassador. This has been such a lovely conversation on and off the mic. And to the listeners who this is all for, thank you for helping us prove that our stories matter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for recommending. We have so much more to look forward to in the next season. And we look forward to having an Africa where power is held with dignity, where women lead with courage and with service. Thank you so much. We hope to see you soon.
We thank you for your support throughout the season. This is the Power Panel Podcast.